If you want to start racing in the PlayStation, like in Assetto Corsa, Competizione or Gran Turismo 7, this is a video for you. But first, a few points. The first one is that this is a video for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. If some wheels are compatible with PlayStation 3, it's not the main point of the video. Everything will be towards the newer generations. The second point is on the same vein. This is a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 video, but some of these wheels will have an Xbox counterpart. I'll be putting below the names of these wheels if those apply. And the third point is that I have affiliates with some companies. You can check them below if you want to. If you're not too sure that racing with a wheel is for you, the first thing that I will tell you is the same thing that I will say in similar videos like this. Check the second-hand market. If you make a trip to Facebook, eBay, or any second-hand market, you can see what you can have for those prices. It can be very well the case that you can land a wheel that we are going to talk about later at a very hefty discount, or you can have wheels that were discontinued a couple of years ago, like the Fanatec CSL Elite or the Trustmaster TGT1. And speaking about discontinued wheels that you can get in the second-hand market, we can have a look at a few options like the Fanatec CSL Elite. I used one for years. Extremely good wheel. It is compatible with the Fanatec ecosystem, pretty much all of it. It is an extremely smooth belt wheel. It has everything you really need to, compatible with their ecosystem. You can connect it to pedals and wheels. You can feel all the details on a 4-speed back. You can also have, if you can find it, a Trustmaster TGT1. It has this big bass shaker at the back. It's an haptic feel that is very unique to Trustmaster for this type of wheelbase. That will give you feedback sensations that are really not replicable in the same way with other even more expensive wheelbases. And the third one, if you are willing to spend that much, a Fanatec Podium DD1 PlayStation version. This was discontinued. It's still my personal wheel. I've been using it for 3 years. It's plenty strong, compatible with everything, and that wheel refuses to die. But let's start about new equipment. Please avoid the bungee wheels like the plague. We're talking about stuff like the Hori wheels or the Trustmaster T80. They really are bottom of the barrel in sim racing. If you're going to spend that much money on a wheel or that little money in a wheel, might as well just have the gamepad. Just use the gamepad. I think, in my opinion, it will provide you a better sensation because the gamepad will have haptics and all of that. And all of these wheels honestly are that bad. The pedals tend to be very bad and the wheel even worse, even though it has buttons. And speaking of the PXN, both the V9 and V10 are PlayStation 4 and 5 compatible, but these types of wheels are compatible through a method that is, I don't think it's very illegal. They're not official licensed, so that means that PlayStation or Sony will take that license somewhere. So this leads us to the first real choices, in my opinion, which are the Trustmaster T150 and the Trustmaster T128. The T150 is discontinued, but there are still boxes unopened and you can find new ones out there, so I left them this more on the new part. But you know, you can find them both in the second-hand market and right now. The T128 is more of an updated version of the T150, slightly a little bit stronger, and what is normal between the T150, the T128, and also the T248, which we'll talk about later, is that they are hybrids, gear and belts, and they have a very specific feel. They'll feel a little bit grainy at times, and they feel a little bit slow on a 4-seat back, but the 4-seat back tends to be quite satisfying on these wheels, and they have also plenty of options. All of these wheels are reliable wheels with quite interesting 4-seat back. They tend to be grainy, but they do the job well. The issue with both of them are the very imprecise pedals. They're very entry-level pedals. They just do their job with very little resistance, and that can be very imprecise in the braking. For the Trustmaster T150 specifically, there is an option called the Trustmaster T150 Pro that comes with upgraded pedals compared to what they have on the base version. If you are in the budget of this, I would much rather consider the T150 Pro over the T128 exactly because of it, because in sim racing or in racing, the pedals are so much more important than the wheel itself. In terms of prices, the T150 will hover between 150 to 180 depending on price a year, like all of them. And then you can have the T150 Pro for around 200, 220. The T128 will be around 170, 180, you know, give it or take 10 euros. Then Logitech brings a couple of wheels that have an amazing reputation in sim racing. That will be the Logitech G29 and G923. The G29 and 923 are wheelbases that are part of a family that are the starting point for many in sim racing. As wheelbases, they are rather good, they give decent force feedback for the price. The gears are slightly loud. The pedals that come in the box are phenomenally well designed for many use cases, like they can be used in the floor, in the carpet. They can be used and mounted in the sim rig. The brake is very usable and the pedal rates are very well selected. For the G29 for the PlayStation, it's very hard to beat this because you can get these wheelbases with pedals at under 200 euros, which will be perfect for a lot of people that are just starting. And then you have the Logitech G923, which is a wheelbase that is slightly upgraded, but honestly, in many use cases, I would much rather have the Logitech G29. The difference is something called True Force, which are haptic feels that give us slightly little more detail, especially in Gran Turismo 7. But honestly, for the price difference, I don't think the True Force makes a lot of sense. For the G29, you can have it for 100 to 200 euros, and the Logitech G923, I've seen it as high as 329, normally at around 250. So for the difference, essentially for the same wheel, just go for the G29 in my opinion. Logitech also has a small selection for ecosystem. All of these wheelbases can be connected to a shifter. The shifter is 39, 49, 59 euro. It's a very basic shifter that's been designed for years. And that shifter can also be used on a more expensive wheel through the use of a box that will grant the compatibility. And now that also means if you want to connect a load cell pedal from Logitech into the Logitech G29, you can also do it, but it needs to be done through a box. To compete with the Logitech G93, Trustmaster released the T248, which is essentially an upgraded version of the T150 with 50% more torque. It is very similar, it's a little bit smoother, less grainy, but it's still very much a wheel like that. It comes also with their hybrid design engine with gears and belts. The force feedback is extremely improved over the T150. It has plenty of buttons, even a mode selection button, and you can change also the torque curves of the force feedback. And also comes in the box with a much upgraded version of the old T3PA pedals that come on a T150 Pro, for example. The T3PMs, in my opinion, much better pedals, but it still suffers a little bit from what I consider to be a big issue, at least for me, with the T150 and also this wheel that I'm talking about, which is the rear ends of the car, especially in the Assetto Corsa Competizione, isn't really well felt, but still it is a good option for most. However, that would be if you didn't consider the price, because the price of it is around 250 to 70 to 300 euros, and depending when you're gonna buy it, that will interfere with the biggest competition of this wheel, which is in reality another wheel from Trustmaster, in this case the T300 RS. The T300 RS might be the most recommendable wheel for this list because it has many of the things that you really need for racing and has a good force feedback. Depending on what you buy, a very decent pedal set. It is compatible with everything in the ecosystem of Trustmaster, so that means wheels, shifters, and if you want also a load cell pedal, you can get the TLCM load cell pedal. The force feedback is fantastic, very dependable, very precise. It's not the fastest wheel out there, but it's extremely good even for drifting if you are into that in Gran Turismo 7. Essentially what you have with the T300 RS is a long-term platform if you want to be somewhat serious or semi-serious into racing. It will do everything very well, doesn't matter if the PlayStation or if it's on the PC. There is a somewhat of a big issue with the T300 RS though if you live in hot climates or you are in a very hot room, which is the wheel can disconnect the force feedback or disconnect itself because it gets overheated. There is a fan mode that mostly resolves the issue. Personally, I've used it for 3 years. I never found that fault. The prices for the T300 RS will hover significantly, can be done as low as 279 for the 2-pedal version. I would recommend you to get the 2-pedal version if you want to do a pedal upgrade because those pedals are really bad, or if you just want a platform to race on, get the T300 RS GT because it does have the T3PA pedals that can be upgraded. And the T300 RS GT can be had to up to a maximum of 429 euros, but generally they're over around 369. And because of it, it may be a better choice for you than something like a a T248, or even the next one that I'm going to talk about, which is the TGT2. Now, the TGT2 is an upgraded version of the TGT1. In terms of Thrustmaster, there is such a thing as the Thrustmaster feel for the belt wheels. They feel slightly notchy, slightly grainy, and it doesn't matter which wheel you have, they feel more or less more powerful or less powerful, as long as they are the belt ones, not the hybrid ones. And it's exactly the case with the TGT2, which in this case, it is the upgraded version of the TGT1 that comes with a big bass shaker of sorts towards the back of the wheelbase that will give you more feel in Gran Turismo 7 and Gran Turismo Sport. So essentially that wheelbase, the TGT, is built for Gran Turismo. It has a special wheel. The pedals are exactly the same, the T3PAs, but the big problem with this wheel, it is its price proposal or its value proposal, because at this price it's much more expensive than the T3 RS. It starts at 450 euros just for the servo alone, and around 700 euros with the pedal set. It's also compatible with everything in the ecosystem of Thrustmaster, but because of the price, which is 700 euros, you might much well consider something like the Fanatec DD Pro, which will be a direct drive wheel. The DD Pro is a wheel that I use oftentimes. It is compatible everything in the Fanatec ecosystem, so wheels, it's going to be compatible with pedals, shifters, and handbrakes, and everything like that. It is a very decent wheel. At 5 Newton meters, it has almost exactly the same torque as the TGT. The big difference between both of them in the bundle is that the DD Pro will have 2 pedals and the TGT will have 3 pedals. However, everything in the DD Pro is made to be customizable to your experience. You can upgrade the power of it if you want by spending extra 100 euros. You get 18 meters instead of 5. And if you want, you also can get a load cell pedal, standalone unit that will connect to the pedal base. Something that on a TGT cannot be done because you need to buy a separate pedal set. The wheel on a CSLDD, much like a TGT, is made specifically for Gran Turismo. Both of them will look ugly, but they're very practical because you can change the modes of your car very, very easily. And in terms of force feedback, it's basically superior to everything that I talked up until now. It is a very precise wheel, very fast. You can do plenty of things in it, either that be in PlayStation or on the PC. You can drift with it. It is very responsive, and it's a wheel that I personally like very much. Now, for this wheel, in Fanatec specifically, there are 3 issues that I need to talk about. The first one is the wheel side quick release that sometimes disconnect, and you'll have to torque up the clamp that will be on the wheel shaft. Secondly, at the back, be very careful with the connectors. Don't tug them in any shape or form. You need to be very sure that you are taking out correctly the RJ cable, because if you tug them in a wrong way, that connector can be broken. And thirdly, we need to talk about Fanatec delivery. It has been quite a mess in Europe, but more specifically in the United Kingdom and Switzerland. That means you can purchase a box, purchase something from Fanatec, and then you'll have to wait 1 month or more for delivery. That is especially true with United Kingdom and Switzerland, not as much in continental Europe, but it can still happen 2-3 weeks delivery time. Logitech is also offering a direct drive called the Logitech Pro 11 Newton meters direct drive, and it's something that was quite interesting to test last year, as I did with a review, because it comes with an interesting version, a much better version of what is available on G923 3, which is True Force, and in reality does the haptics really, really well. It's a very strong wheel at 11 Newton meters. It comes with a steering wheel as well, a very useful one with lots of buttons and very ergonomic. The force feedback, in my opinion, is fantastic. I've used it for drifting, I used it for rally, I've used it in a lot of ways, and I think it's one of the best force feedbacks out there, beating pretty much everything here, bar one wheel that we'll talk about later. I really love the force feedback of the Pro wheel, especially in Gran Turismo 7. It's basically one of the best force feedbacks that I've ever felt for that game. When it was broken was really good, and now when it's not broken, it is absolutely bonkers. There are a few downsides of this wheel, and one of them is that the wheelbase, it is huge. It has a very limited ecosystem. You can get the Pro pedals and then you have the price. As for the ecosystem, they've launched this last year. They haven't released any formula wheels or any shifters and whatnot, but the back of the wheelbase says, well, there must be something coming into this because there's a hub at the back. So they haven't released anything, and if you buy it, you only have really a choice of buying the wheel, getting the pedals, and you can get the box to have the compatibility with the shifter. Or if you don't want to get the pedals, you need to get the old pedals from the G29 or the 93, and they will be compatible. Another issue is the size of the wheel and the size of the pedals. They're really big, so you need to make sure where you're going to put this, because it's not going to be possible for everyone. Even though it's very usable on the desk, on a sim rig you'll have to raise, for example, your monitor. Then you have the question of the pedals. I didn't like much the pedals, and the pedals are 350 euros for the options, and for the price I think there are better pedals on Fanatec, for example. It's 350 euros. They're very good on the floor, but that's, for me, that's about it. There are better pedals in Fanatec with the V3s, and these are essentially worse than V3s and worse than the CSL Elite V2s. And then there's the question of the price. The wheelbase is 1,000 euros. That comes with the steering wheel, and the pedals, once again, 350. We're considering that we're going to... This video is about the PlayStation, so if you want to play PlayStation with this, it will cost at the very minimum around 1,350 euros, which is arguably a lot for a wheelbase that doesn't have any ecosystem around it. But what does have an ecosystem around it is the Fanatec Club Sport DD Plus. There are two versions of this. One of it is compatible with the PC and the Xbox, and then there's this one, the DD Plus, which has 15 Newton meters, the strongest of the bunch that we've talked about. It will be compatible with the PC, Xbox, and also with the PlayStation, because this is we're talking about a video about the PlayStation. I've tried the Club Sport version on Sim Racing Expo, and I liked it very much. It had plenty of torque. It was very good. It's very precise force feedback in a package that is just a little bit bigger than the Fanatec CSL DD Pro. But once again, at this price, it becomes something really niche, because I can't really see everyone trying to go towards a wheelbase that costs 999 euros without any wheels, without any pedals, to justify it for the PlayStation alone. This is more of a wheel that you use on a PC, and then if you want, you can also use on a PlayStation, in the same way that I use the Fanatec DD1 Podium, the PlayStation version. Most of the time that I use it, it's on a PC, but I also like to play PlayStation games, so I use it as a wheel for both platforms. To finish this, a few recommendations. It's always good to check out what is about on the second-hand market, because you never know if you're gonna like this and if you're jumping into racing in the consoles. But if you want to buy something new, which is generally what I would tend to recommend because you do get the warranty for the PlayStation, the recommendations that I'm going to say now are essentially the same recommendations that I've been doing for years, for most of the time, except now on this year or next year for the PC, because things changed with the lowering of the costs of the entry-level direct drives, which changed the dynamics of the market quite a lot. So for PlayStation specifically, the wheels that you should be looking towards will be more of the Logitech G29, because they do everything correctly. You have always a good experience, or the T300RS, especially the GT, because of the pedals, unless you want to buy something like the TLCMs. Both of these wheelbases will still continue to give you most of what you need in racing or sim racing, either in a PC or in a PlayStation. They operate rather well, and I think you'll be happy with them. The direct drive wheels are definitely much better, but unless you can't justify the difference, there's really no point going towards them, because you're going to spend more money. You get a slightly better perception of the force feedback and a slightly better experience, but for most people, especially on the consoles, it won't give you that much back. Anyways, if you find these videos useful, press like and subscribe and become a member to the channel. Have a good one.